All right. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, for password, just put whatever you want, popcorn, MD, anything.
You only get points if you buy popcorn. Okay.
All right. Rhea?
So last weekend, we had the Samaritan in Health Fair. So thank you to all the volunteers who showed up. We had a really great time. Here's some pictures from the event.
There was even free massagers. You guys can stop.
Did you go?
Yes, but I didn't get a massage.
Okay, so our first fundraiser is almost over. Today is the last day we're going to be selling it right here. So it's going towards the Alzheimer's Association. It's basically going towards care and support for all patients and their families with Alzheimer's. And it's also going towards Alzheimer's research. So please consider donating. They use a lot of this research money for the new treatments for Alzheimer's that are coming out. So all of your money that goes to the Alzheimer's Association is well used and it goes to a good cause. So please consider donating even if you don't want to buy popcorn. But we are selling Halloween popcorn with candy for $2.50 per bag and then $2 for just plain kettle corn. And we're also accepting donations of any amount. And you can pay via Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, cash, or credit card. And if you have any questions, you can ask me or Kate to be the other fundraising chair, or you can email us at moldingdoctorsons@gmail.com.
All right.
Okay, so we have two volunteering events that are still going on. We have Incredible Fridays, which is, I believe, once a month. We have 2 dates remaining for the year, November 12th and December 10th. So if you guys would like to sign up for that, there's a QR code on the screen. And then in 2022, for the spring semester, we also have 4 dates. We'll talk about those more in the coming meetings as well. This will be at First Baptist McKinney, and then volunteers are supposed to show up from about 5:15 to 9:30. And this is just where you're taking care of kids who probably have special needs. Their parents kind of just leave them with us to have fun, and then they can go and do shopping or go on a date or whatever they want. So we will offer 3 points per session for that. And then we also have Reading Partners of North Texas. If you guys would like to participate in that, our second training session will be this Saturday, October 30th at 1 p.m. So if you guys would like to participate for that, please mark your calendars. And that's where we kind of just help kids learn how to read. It's a weekly volunteering event, I believe, for 1 hour.
Any questions on that? Okay. All right, I guess that's it. So it was a very brief updates. Obviously, updates on our meetings aren't the only updates. The best place is going to be at in our emails. So, also make sure you're checking that, make sure you're checking our social media. But yeah, any other MD related questions before we get on? All right, so without further ado, well, I'm going to welcome the panelists. So if you guys want to make your way. All right, so I'm gonna, introduce them, and then if you guys want to also kind of talk a little bit about yourself and if you guys are alumni and what you're doing. So first off, we have Mustafa.
Hey guys, hope it's on. Hello. Yeah, so my name is Mustafa. I'm currently a master's student at the UNT post-bac program. I used to go to UNT, UTD. I graduated spring 2020 in neuroscience, currently applying the cycle. So for most of you guys, I've probably been in a similar situation as you guys or moving forward. if you guys have any questions or anything like that, I can probably help, expedite the process or clear up any questions or confusions you guys might have.
Also in the MedSci program is Aya.
Hello guys, my name is Aya. Very similar to Mustafa, I also graduated from UTD, but I actually did 2021 in May. I majored in biology and healthcare studies, so it was a double major. I am in the UNC Health Science program right now, and I'm in the program right now, and I did take my MCAT in June, so it wasn't too long ago. But pretty much same thing, and
All right. Next up, we have Yassine.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Yassine, and I also was a UTD student back in the day. I was involved in 10 rap and tutoring and other stuff on campus. Now I'm studying in medicine.
Okay, sorry. And then Salman.
Hey guys, my name is Salman. I'm also a second year medical student at UTD. I graduated from UTD back in the fall of 2019 with a degree in biology. Any of you guys were in like PLTL or anything like that? I have seen you guys around as well as a physics PLTL leader. So yeah, I'm also involved in turnouts. If you guys have any questions about like getting involved on campus or how to apply or just general advice, feel free to ask.
And then lastly, we have Valentina.
Hi everyone, I'm Valentina, and I'm also a Southwestern MS2 with Tina Salman, and also the Tim Raps. I don't know if that's like a common denominator, so like, I don't know. Well, I graduated in 2020 as well. And yeah, if you guys just have any questions also about like choosing if you want to do med school versus PA versus other things. For example, I was interested in UT jumping programs for a while to be a teacher. So if you guys have those kind of like vocation questions, like definitely feel free to ask, or like how do you find out if you want to do medicine or not.
All right. So before we get into the questions, just want to say this is a very stacked roster of medical students. They've done it all. If you guys know Srikanth, Dr. Srikanth and Dr. Wilson, Salman and Yassine TA'd for them. And then, Valentina also, I've known, and then the others, of course. So this isn't like a typical medical student panel. We usually have that in like February, but this ended up how it is. But obviously they'll still have relevant, pre-med / MCAT advice. So we're gonna start off with the pre-med portion of it. And if you guys just wanna talk out loud or use the mic, it's up to you guys. All right, so the first question is, what was the hardest obstacle you encountered as a pre-med student and how did you deal with it?
MCAT was the hardest part for me. I dealt with it by front loading my prep for the class for the exam, and then after that it was a lot smoother sailing. I can only imagine how hard it must have been to do it during COVID.
I mean, honestly, similar to what Yassine said, probably the MCAT will be the hardest part in like the pre-med journey. But I'd say like holistically, it's looking within yourself, and you kind of have to gauge what kind of student you are. You have to kind of learn, okay, am I most efficient by studying this kind of way? Do I manage my time correctly? How do I stand myself out further from the rest, yet still maintain some type of social life, decent sleep, and all that kind of balance? I feel like that's something like no one really gets down in the beginning. It usually takes a couple of years, and by the end of it all, like when you have that hindsight bias, you're like, dang, I could have done so many things differently. So many, like I maybe overstressed this thing, or I didn't stress this enough. And it's finding that right balance and like adjusting and moving forward correctly.
I can answer. So I'm pretty sure we all know that MCAT is probably the hardest part of our journey, but also like going through your undergrad, one obstacle that a lot of people come across is grades. So I know all of us are, pre-med, we're all gonna get A's, but there's gonna be times in your undergrad where you might not make that A, you might get a B, and or a C or whatever. But you just kind of have to like reason with yourself and understand that there's people in my school right now that got B's and C's in class, and just because you get a B or one bad grade does not mean your whole journey is over. So don't ever think that, I've came across that multiple times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I did so bad in this test or whatever, I'm gonna get a B, blah, 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 I'm never gonna make it. But I mean, I'm still going right now, and I've had multiple B's in my undergrad career.
Should they retake a class just because they got an A minus?
You know what, I've thought about that, I've gotten a B and I thought about retaking it, but don't do that because the way that medical school balances with retakes is they average the retakes, so even if you got a B and then the next semester you get an A, the average with a B and an A is still a B, so don't ever do that, don't do that.
Yeah, kind of like adding on that, if you get a B in a class and you worked hard, or the B usually means that you worked hard, just kind of fell a little short. There's no guarantee you take it a second time and you get better than that. So like, if you got a C because some extraneous circumstances happen, then it's definitely worth taking it again. But if it's something that you just worked hard and you got like an 85, then like it's just not worth it. I got to be in a class that more than one B in class. It's not a big deal. It happens to most people in medical schools. I was gonna say like for the questions itself, like one of the things that's kind of difficult for a lot of first and second years, especially is finding research. And I see a couple of odds and a lot of you guys are struggling, like, you know, especially with COVID, like how do I get involved? How do I answer those things that people that came in and they were already starting the lab since, you know, they were 14 years old, and like, don't worry about that. Don't stress about your first and second year. Really. I don't think I got into the actual lab until my junior year. So it's more important that you're getting involved in extracurriculars that are like clinical, or just getting you some sort of experience. I was doing time around with the same my sophomore year, which was more like clinical. It was under the umbrella term of research, but it wasn't working with rats. It wasn't doing a bunch of random neuroscience experiments. So it's more about just finding activities that are going to make you a better student and like better long-term learner.
And I would say this is something that I personally struggled with, but that I kind of sympathize with and kind of saw where my friends struggle with. Like, for example, my family is from Mexico, from Germany, so like what they expected and what they knew about what college was like and what med school things were like, and everything was very different. And so thankfully, my parents were just very into like, you gotta, you know, work hard in school because that's good for you, and they like supported me through it. But I know that a lot of people, like a lot of my friends, especially friends from like Latin America, that I have that just the parents didn't know the language and the parents didn't know what it was like to go through all of this. So kind of that lack of the family understanding what you're going through was something I saw a lot. And I can think that all of us over here sort of have some one of the like, we know what we're doing and everything sort of demeanor, but you know, like you have no idea what you're doing right now, or the whole like A's and B's. I mean, one of my friends that kept on having D's. Now she's actually leading a C like program, which is great. She's in the online one, but like, you know, don't feel like if you're not even at the B student level yet, that you're like totally out of the league to get into med school. We definitely are. And also knowing that PA school is a different option that's not so different to medicine than you might think. Like if you're almost very knowledgeable about, like your parents might only know about doctors, so they're like, oh, go do this, but to explore all of the health professions, I think is something very useful that would have been nice for me to do early on in my undergrad, just to kind of not to kind of into one track. You can choose multiple things.
Make it till you make it.
All right, so thank you guys. Next question is, what extracurricular activities were you guys involved in, and how dedicated were you guys to these events?
So during my 4 years in college, I'd say I was less involved in as much of the breadth of extracurriculars as a lot of people were. I picked to just focus on the few that I enjoyed. And I think that really worked for me over my 4 years when I ended up applying. So like I was involved in the International Soccer Club. I hope it still exists. I'm not sure if it still exists. And I was also involved in tutoring, and really involved in SSC. That was very helpful both as a student and as a tutor. And then Tamara, I was involved in that. And then I was involved in some like basic bench lab research my sophomore year. But then like what I ended up doing is I just focused on my time in Tamarack and all the opportunities that it provided. So I would say like kind of like how there's resource overload for a lot of classes, there's also extracurricular overload. Just do whatever you love. Take your vacations, go on your family trips, and don't do everything that everyone else is doing. Do what you like. Even in these like pre-med clubs, I wasn't as active as like a lot of people were, but I chose to like go with what I love doing, and I think that really helps you in the long run.
Honestly, it seems said it best. You want to pick stuff that you enjoy and things that you'll have fun doing. And you really don't want to overload yourself with too much. To be honest with you guys, everyone's scribing, everyone's shadowing, everyone's doing research. You're not going to really make yourself that much stand out by overloading yourself with too much. Just be good, like be okay. Like you don't have to throw everything at once. Honestly, for me, what I went with was picking 1 or 2 extracurricular activities a semester. 2, even in like dedicating yourself to that. I did research. I'm sure all of you guys are familiar with Dr. Zhang, her heme lab research. Yeah, I did that for a semester. I did research with Dr. Safi over 1 summer. And then during my gap year, when after COVID started, we did work. We did the COVID testing. That was something that's like nice that you can also add to your application. Working different jobs in the medical field also kind of makes you diversified as an applicant. Like really just, I'd say do a little bit at a time, but that just makes you a diverse applicant. You kind of get yourself exposed to so many different areas and so many different fields, but most importantly, just don't overload yourself and pick stuff you need.
Adding on to what Mustafa said, so what I've heard from a lot of med students that are in medical school right now or professors is that, like you were saying, standing out is the most important thing, or like an important thing to have on their applications. Like you said, striving and medical assistant, all that, everyone's going to be doing the same thing. But if you have like a secret, a hidden talent that you enjoy, like if you are an artist or a singer, pianist, adding that and exemplifying that in your applications can really make you stand out. And a lot of times, during your applications, you will be asked about those for extracurriculars because it's different and they want to hear something other than, oh yeah, I started that here for this many years. It's different and they get to hear a different side of your pre-med journey, and that always helps with the application.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit of nuance to what you said. Like, it is important to really like pick a couple of things that you like and go for some of those. But there are certain like checkbox things that you guys also need to make sure you're not completely neglecting. I mean, I didn't scribe or anything like that, but through time out, I was able to get a lot of like diversity of experiences, and I did go pretty deep within Tamarack in the sense that I stayed there for a long period of time, and I got involved in leadership and things like that. But I ensured that I wasn't just like picking 1 or 2 things and just ignoring the other facets that make someone be a good medical student. So I realized my junior year, my application side, like basic research, so I went a lot there, and I really enjoyed the work I did there. So it's all about like not just doing things that obviously you have to find things that you really want to do and spend the most time there, but the flip side of that is you also do need to make sure that you're addressing some of like the major weaknesses in your application. And it doesn't mean that if you don't have any student interest groups that you just join town on the student put on your resume. That's really superficial and easy to see through. But if you have 1 or 2 student interest groups that you like, then get involved here and there. And like Morning Doctors is a great organization, right? Like show up to events, make yourself known, and see if you can apply for a leadership position. So that way it's not just a thing that you're saying I did, but it's something that like actually you grew in and like you were making progression as you're going. If you're in a research lab for 3 years, nobody cares. They want to see you were in there for 1 year. In the 2nd year, you were working, you got an abstract, you got a poster, something like that. 3rd year, maybe you got a publication. It's all about progression. And if you're hitting those boxes and you're most importantly, you're doing what you're doing, that's like the winning formula.
Answer my.
And just to add to that, yeah, I made sure like from my first year that I was making sure that I was checking all the boxes. So it's just that I made sure that with those check boxes, I was doing things like don't go into a research lab that you like. I mean, don't go into a research lab just because a friend told you about it and then stay there for years just because everybody else does the same. Find the research you love, whether it's clinical or basic science. For like in terms of you do need clinical hours. So if you're gonna shadow, I mean, if you're gonna scribe, shadow, make sure you do that. And med schools love continuity in whatever you do. It's kind of like applying for a job. They love to see that your past jobs were like for a year long. They weren't just, you're just applying, you were in something for 2 months or whatever, and then you tell them, oh yeah, I worked there for 2 months and then I switch. Because that means you're bouncing around as well, you're not focused. And then also, when, trying to blank, sorry. Oh yeah, when checking boxes, make sure, so like one of the things that I did was I stayed, I volunteered like almost every Sunday at a health clinic in Frisco that I was with since high school. And I stuck to that. And then with that, like, you have a lot of experience you can talk about. So like holding doctors, they have that homeless initiative. If you do those for the points, try to also be continuous and always go to that homeless home so that you can. But oh yeah, this is what I want to say. So I was involved. Sorry, it's men's health week. Yeah, this is Mexican syndrome that happens. But what? So anyway, gosh dang it. Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah. So the thing is, I was involved in a lot of organizations my first year. Like I just kind of dipped my head into a couple different rooms. Like I was part of the Punjabi Student Association. I wasn't I'm not Punjabi, but I didn't put that on my app because I just didn't want to fill up my app with a bunch of random things.
And I can ask you about that in an interview. You'd be like, oh, well, I'm not Punjabi.
Yeah, you can still bring it up at the interview, but you don't have to put it on.
I mean, they'll ask, whatever you put on, they'll ask, like, if you're embarrassed or like, don't want to talk about something, just put it on your app.
Yeah, that's it.
But yes, so like what everyone was saying, like quality over quantity is like a good golden rule. And yes, let's see what else. Yeah, and about the whole checking boxes thing, one way to like know what the mental like or not like is, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, I only heard about like where like it was like this, the AAMC like core competencies or whatever, like the things you're looking for in medical students. As long, whatever you do, as long as you like are able to tie it back to that, pretty much you're set. For example, you're an ethical person, or you're someone that can think scientifically. So like joining a research lab, it doesn't mean you have to be doing, discovering something new or getting a publication. As long as you can say, oh, I understood, the science behind this new molecule or something, and you can basically just have a little explanation of why what you did in the lab like matches what the AMC is looking for, you're good. So you don't really have to, like they were saying, you don't have to put a massive amount of hours into something. You just want to make sure it's something very meaningful to med schools, but most importantly, meaningful to you. And that way you'll enjoy yourself while you're doing this stuff outside of class.
I wanted to ask if you guys can talk about how this like extracurricular activities apply to like either interviews or what you're currently doing. Like, has that made an impact, or is it like just you kind of did it in your undergrad, now you're doing something completely different?
So the reason why medical schools look for clinical hours, they look for shadowing hours, they look for research and all of that, is because that really is what you're supposed to learn from those experiences. And by having those experiences, you're learning the things that they're not going to be able to teach you in med school. At least not. It takes time. It's kind of like, we'll get into this later, but like the cards section of the MCAT, that's the reading section, right? That's one of those that you can't just learn in 2 months or 3 months. That's one of those that's like a lifetime learning, prep for it, the SATs, etc. That's the same thing for all of these experiences. You can't learn how to develop empathy for a patient. You can learn sympathy, but you can't learn empathy. Empathy comes from experience. When you apply to med school, they're gonna ask you about things. Even if you worked at McDonald's, now you can relate to the people that work at McDonald's. They're gonna ask you about different emotional moments that you've had with patients. They're gonna ask you about your love for research and whether you actually love research, because the medical field really is science. Like that's, I think, one of the number one things that differentiates MDs from PAs and other fields of medicine, of other allied healthcare fields, is the scientific part, the love for learning new technology, the love for learning, and yeah.
Like new receive it,
What?
like new receive, they make the new receive after someone now. Would you?
Maybe someone else. They do
Yeah,
that a lot.
you gotta
They name
name-
like every single little body part, even though you didn't know existed, so after people.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah.
that actually, that just reminded me of something. A lot of these med schools that you apply to, I mean, they're med schools, so they're academic institutions. Meaning when you apply, you're trying to relate, at least they're looking for students that they can relate to. Like everyone always, I mean, they're not looking for students that they can relate to, but your interviewer is gonna love you more, I guess, like subconsciously, when they can relate to you. Like if they see you like a young aspiring medical student that loves knowledge and wants to be a teacher one day, that's a plus, because they're a teacher, they can relate to love for teaching. But if you go over to them and tell them, yeah, I love medicine, and I really want to work in private, like private care, because I have this MBA, and MBA is good, you just gotta know how to phrase it. But like, if you end up saying, no, I really want to work and have my own clinic, and it's all about the money and this and that, a lot of those people are not going to relate to you. There are other positions that will relate to you, but not the ones that are in you. So make sure that you do things that can help you relate to those that are in you.
One thing about research is like you, like as a medical student or as a doctor, you need to be able to appreciate research, like why it's important, why it's interesting. But that doesn't mean you need to be able to love doing research. Because like if you love doing research, like only, you can just still complete the PhD. So that's something very like good to keep in mind. And for me, I felt like UCB was very research focused. Like a lot of people that went here really like it. And a lot of the professors are like very research intense. So you might feel like, you know, if you don't like research, I mean, not supposed to be a doctor or what, but you just have to understand like, as a doctor, all you need to be able to do is say, it's very important for us to study these things scientifically, because that's the only way we'll know if a drug is actually helpful for a patient. And not just like someone decided to give the drug to the patient. So like if, for example, you're not a fan of lab research, still do it and be able to appreciate, you know, all this work went into this, and then you'll be able to think back to that. If you can find something that's clinical research, like what TEMRAP does, I think that's really cool, because then you'll actually start seeing, you're doing surveys with people, or even like site research. I think they have like, like site research labs with like applications that come through and so I think if you like that, definitely pursue that too, but that's all just as much research as working in a chemistry lab. Just putting it out there.
And the three of us, like volunteers, Alana and I are probably going to talk to you a lot about research, because we go to a school that very much houses research. But also there's global health, there's serving underserved communities, there's rural medicine. All of those are other passions that you can try to really show on your resume as winners.
To the original question, about how extracurriculars helped us with our pre-med journey and how it's showing in after effects. I'd say the biggest thing is everything's connected. Like everything you do will tie back to when you're in medical school or when you're in residency or in your practice. Everything ties back eventually. I in my pre-med journey, I was fortunate enough to work in many different jobs as like a pharmacy technician, as a MA, as a EMT, as a CNA. I worked like a bunch of different fields and areas, and I can see how they come back to time. Like, even though me and I were not in medical school right now, the Med Sci program, their curriculum is very similar to the TCOM's curriculum. Like it's the same professors, same PowerPoints. The exams are just a bit different. So I can see how like, okay, when I was a pharmacy technician, just through the practice in the field, I familiarized myself with drugs and what their effects are. And then when we studied pharmacology, it all popped right back up. And I'd say the most important part about your extracurriculars is how it ties into your personal statements. Because at the end of the day, you have 5,000 characters to convince these people why you should belong to medicine. Now, how many people in this room can confidently say they're capable of doing that right now with just 5,000 characters? Is your story that good? And because if not, then that's what's the point of the extracurriculars, is to get yourself exposed to the field, get yourself to understand like, okay, this is, and it is for yourself at the end of the day, because you're gonna go, okay, I can see myself going here and doing this every single day. Maybe you're not being a doctor, but you get to watch the doctor do his stuff, whether that be pharmacist, PA, or whatever field. So just get yourself exposed to the field and help you build that story as you go along. If you see a case, if you see something that was important to you, write it down. Like I know a lot of pre-meds who have journals that as they go throughout their years, they write down key points. That was like, okay, this was a meaningful moment. So that's why extracurriculars matter.
Yeah, I really want to echo what Mr. said about really like incorporating whatever you do as a larger part of your story. So one thing that interviewers will ask you is like very specific pointed questions about something on your resume. Just tell me about this. Now, a lot of like one really common mistake is people will say, oh yeah, I volunteered here or I shadowed here and I was doing this and I did that and I did this. And they never actually answered what the real question was, which is like, what is it? Why is it important? What does that tell me about you? What does that tell me about why you belong in medicine? And the first thing to do when you're like doing extracurricular or considering one is like putting it in the broader context of like your story, right? If you the start of convincing someone else that you belong in medicine is to convince yourself that you belong, right? That you have something to offer. And to do that, you have to look and evaluate every single extracurricular that's presented in front of you, which you guys are going to get inundated with so many different opportunities and emails and things like join this group, do this research thing. The way that you're able to parse through it all is to look at it and say like, based on what I've already done, based on what I'm interested in, and based on where I want to go, which one of these things will add to who I want to be. And by the time you get to the interview, you've already created this really comprehensive story. So they asked me, what was this MCAT program you were in? I can talk about how it helped me want to reach the underserved more because it allowed me a chance to speak one-on-one with patients from different socioeconomic backgrounds. I can talk about how it gave me clinical experience through shadowing doctors. I can talk about how it gave me research experience through working in the administrative side. There's a lot of different facets in which like that one program allowed me to grow. So that's why when I was making my decision, I was looking at it like, this is going to fill a lot of things that I know I need to build. So I think not just with interviews, but even right now. So I was also part of this foreign policy club, which a lot of you guys don't bother to look outside of medicine. That's completely understandable. You guys are worried about getting into school, but finding those other hobbies and passions and pursuing them, like me pursuing my interest in foreign policy, just policy in general, kept me really involved in that sphere. And so when I went to medical school, I decided I wanted to get a degree in public health as well. And that further pushed me into doing a policy internship this past summer with the Archer program. So if all of it lines up and I'm making these decisions as I'm going, and I don't necessarily have a 4-year plan, but I'm looking at what I've done before and how these like new things that are coming up can fit into my overall story.
All right. Thank you, guys. All right, next question. So what are the benefits of taking a gap year?
All right, well, in my gap year, honestly, it is very beneficial. You can do so many things with it. I'd say the biggest highlight of it all is improving your application, whether that's retaking the MCAT, doing extracurriculars, shadowing, getting some extra research, or even like, to be honest, I don't know how many of you guys have started like are applying next cycle. Is anyone applying next cycle, this upcoming cycle? Okay, you guys, honestly, this sounds dramatic, but I'd already get started on that personal statement. You get like at least an early rough draft in. I'm sure actually HVAC has you guys already submitted, right, or something like that, right? Yeah, like get started on the primaries. Like honestly, primaries and secondaries alone require at least like 2 months probably worth of work. It's you know what I'm saying? So that gap year is a really great way to get yourself those rough drafts in, do some research, improve on the MCAT score. That's like at least 3 months right there. Those were some of the benefits I had in my gap year at least. So I did COVID testing. I went and took my MCAT January of this year. And now I'm doing the MedSci program as a way to improve my application and get myself familiar with like the first year meds.
I'm currently in my gap year right now, because I graduated back in May. But just to improve your application and do all the things that you wish to do, that you wanted to do during your undergrad, you get to do. So I know if like you want to work a job, if you want to get more clinical experience in hospitals and stuff, you can work as an MA or you can scribe. But also you can, I mean, med school, I'm not there yet, but med school is intense. And from the people that I know that are in med school, they say that they never got a grade going straight from undergrad to med school, and they don't really get that grade other than those few weeks. Is it a few weeks before you start med school?
Yeah,
after?
depending on.
Depending on the med school. So if you know that you're gonna go in right away, I would, if that was me, I would take time to do the things that I like traveling or just taking some time to relax before those 4 years of the school begins again.
So I took a gap semester as well, and it was like a COVID semester, I guess, but I think that for those of you guys that are considering a gap semester, I would highly recommend that over a gap year personally. Once you have a specific program or something that you really have in mind you want to do in that year, to me, a gap semester is like one of the most risk-free things you can do, just because no one's gonna hound you if you're not like getting a publication in the span of a couple of months. Now, if you're taking a year off, they're gonna want to see like what were you doing and like why are you doing this? How is it benefiting your application? Now, the plus side is it really will bolster your application to take a year off. If you take a semester off, it's definitely a more of a way, like if you were already working on some things, you can really get to a conclusion there. So I was really gonna get involved in research and try and show up instead of like the 10 hours a week that I was doing during undergrad, seeing if I could up to like 30, 40 hours a week, and really try and like make some like moves happen in the research side really. Now, if that's not your scene and you more want to just work or you want to get some experience somewhere else, that's fine. But in my opinion, probably the most important thing is having a moment where you're like, where you don't have other obligations. Because when you're a student, there's never time that's like strictly yours, right? There's always a class you could be studying for or a thing you could be doing. But when you're like working or if you're like taking a gap semester and like doing something that's, when you're there, when you're not there, you have your own time. That's when you figure out like, would you actually have your life together if you weren't in school, or like, would you actually be going to the gym if you had time? Would you actually be cooking? All those things that you said, oh, I'll do if I have time. If you can get those in order before school starts, like you'll be in a much better position than a lot of your like traditional student friends will be, because they will have pretty much came from undergrad, they got by, and they go to med school, and it's like so much intense stress. They never built those habits that you could have built during that year in semester off. So I think that's really important, just kind of finding yourself and finding your groove, figuring out like, how to manage a workload. And that's probably the most important part about taking that time off.
The burnout is real. The burnout, like, I don't care how different you think you are, everyone gets burnt out eventually. Yeah, everybody.
And also, like someone said, like non-traditional is the new tradition. Most of our classmates, I would say most of our classmates have taken at least a year or two off post-grad. But also when, like someone said again, if you take more than a semester off, you need to justify it. Whether it's like working at Microsoft or working as a teacher.
Tell them our class president.
Our class president worked at Microsoft.
He's 35 years old, by the way.
35 years old, married. Coming back just to pursue the real passion. Yes, and
I mean, it really took like 10 years off, basically.
I would say gap years. I think
That's a gap decade.
Gap decade.
The only caution, if you do decide to take a gap year, 4 years, is you want to think about when you want to take that MCAT, because MCAT expires after I think 2 or 3 years.
3 years.
3 years, after 3 years. So if you do take a gap year, and there's also that recency advantage in terms of like taking your MCAT. So if you have like some job or something you want to explore after you graduate, maybe think about taking that MCAT exam while you still know some biochem, et cetera. And then take that gap year, gap 2 years, 3 years, et cetera. And then also in terms of, if there's any students here that have come in with a lot of credits and are considering like doing pre-med in 2 years, I was one of those students that thought about that. And then I went and talked to Dr. Diaz in HVAC when I was a freshman, and she was like, "No, take your time." And I took my time. My 4th year of undergrad, I only took 1 class that fall, and then I took that the semester after that I had already graduated. But I count that as a gap year while still being traditional, and not having to justify what I'm doing with my free time.
Yeah, just to reiterate, never feel like gap year is something bad or anything like that, because the word gap makes it sound a little weird, but it's a full year. You're gonna be doing stuff, whether it's taking care of yourself, doing something you love, whether it's doing something you love and working, like you'll be doing stuff, but it's never just a gap.
And like, correct me if I'm wrong, but once you're in med school, you don't have that option anymore, right?
Actually, I'm still considering the gap year in school.
You can take it after your 3rd year.
Yeah, like what you'll do is you'll take it after your 3rd year, if you want to take like a research year. And that just depends on what you're applying to and whether you think it's worth it or not. I might not, it all depend on how clinical skill and how, where I'm at with my extracurriculars and what field I'm actually interested in. But there's a lot of people that consider gap years now or later.
I know one medical student at TCOM, after their 1st year, they were like, "All right, I'm taking the next year off." So like they literally like, "I'll be back in a year." And TCOM's like, "All right, we'll wait for you." What are you gonna do?
And we also have some friends that have gotten into med schools and then they ask for a year off.
Yeah.
It's another strategy.
Deferred. All right. So how has been your mental state throughout this part?
So, for me, like, we're just in this process, the whole thing. Okay, so your life is not like complete after the MCAT. There's a lot more to it. Some people will say the application cycle feels like the MCAT, like prepping for the MCAT or worse. Others say it's not as bad. I took advice from another medical student at the time and didn't apply as in these schools, so I wasn't as stressed, I think, as I could have been, but I was still stressed. And one thing that helped me was meeting somebody. So, because this guy's a teddy bear. Looks like a grizzly bear. But yeah, keep in touch with your friends. Understand that like this entire process is not something you should do alone. You're doing it for yourself, you're doing it for your community. And you have a lot of other friends, and this like holding doctors is a really good community. Get involved, get to know people, stay in touch with people. I don't know how tough COVID could have been for those that came in not knowing anyone, especially here, but just make sure that you stay in touch with everyone. That really helps. Take your days off. Get manicures, pedicures.
Oh, okay. No. Honestly, this is a pretty loaded question. If you ask me, I think, and where to start? So there's so many aspects to this. I think it's a very subjective question. I'd say first things first is something I guess a lot of people need to realize is more or less everyone eventually gets it. Eventually, what deters people away from medical school isn't how challenging the MCAT is, because that's just a test you can study for and do better. They give you a lot of attempts to do well on it. It's not having an application, it's not the essays, that's not what deters people away. It's the exhaustion, the like people don't want to dedicate to this anymore. It's like, it's easy now when you're 18, 19, 20, but when you're 23, 24, and 26, like I've seen a lot of people, they'll just give up after 3 years, 4 years, because they're like, I've tried, and they get frustrated, they don't want to do it anymore. So, and that, I think that plays a big aspect into your mental health. And the best way, there's so many ways to like manage this. First things first is understanding, like, if this is something you really want to do and you're dedicated to it, eventually you'll get in somewhere. That's the most important part, because at the end of the day, you'll become a physician, you'll be a physician, everyone will be a physician. And the second thing is have mentors. People who are a few years ahead of you. For me, it was Yassine. Yassine was a huge mentor for me. He helped me through like undergrad, the MCAT, essays, the whole shebang. And I'd say like having someone there who's done it all and who's succeeded at it, kind of give you like to help you out, be a support system, a bit of a crutch for you is a huge part of it. And give yourself days off, even when you're studying for the MCAT, whether that be 1 day a week or 1 day a month. Give yourself a way to like step out away from it all and relax and recollect yourself. Because that stress builds up, and a lot of it comes from within yourself. You're hyping yourself up for like it's Day of Judgment or something like that for the D-Day or on the MCAT.
I will say for the MCAT, the way that I did it, I don't ever recommend anyone studying the way that I did. It was not the right way to do it. And the way that I did it was, I lived and breathed the MCAT for the 8 months that I studied, where I was still kind of in school during it, so it did take some time. I did absolutely nothing but study. I didn't talk to anyone. I had no social life. I didn't go to the gym. I didn't even eat. All I did was study. And then when time comes around for the MCAT and I took the MCAT, I like did not know how to do anything anymore, because I was like, I've been secluded for so long just studying for the MCAT. And I didn't take days off. I did not do anything. And that was this was to help me do that. And he was telling me like how stupid I was for doing that. But when time comes around, if I ever need to take the MCAT again, I know not to ever do that. And I know that you need, like, even if it's once a month, to take a break and just relax and give yourself some time. You should really do that, because after the MCAT and studying for so long, it was just, you need it. You really need a break during the process of the MCAT, because that's probably, so far, it has been the hardest test I've ever taken. And I don't know, will you ever see some ever taken afterwards? Maybe? Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah,
Not
it's like in boards.
not boards, but that's a fail. It worked.
Yeah, I mean, so MCAT will be like separate exam for you guys separated until this point for sure. I don't think it'll get harder until obviously step one, but the thing is like, and this question is obviously very subjective, there's like a million ways that you take care of yourself and like what it means for me, not gonna be what it means for you guys, but from my personal experience, it's like forcing myself to like put it down, the work will be there tomorrow, especially when things like MCAT goes around, especially like in med school too. Like I am currently like 10 lectures behind, which is like 10 hours of information. And that's just like 2 days of lectures. So like the thing is that the work will get done. It's still gonna be there tomorrow when I wake up. And what's more important to me is like making time to see my friends, talk to my family, to go like, work out. For me, I love rock climbing. So if you guys have those like sort of like passions that the metaphor is like filling up your cup, right? Like you only have a certain amount of energy every day, and that fluctuates from day to day. So trying to make time to like those activities that are going to re-energize you, reinvigorate you. That's probably the most important thing. And then obviously, like having other people around you. I mean, for me, having seen when I was studying around, I ensured that it wasn't, even when I was locked away from parties and things like that, I was still with somebody. I was with a human being. I wasn't going through it alone. I wasn't sitting there wondering, am I the only one who's just not getting this information? You're going through it with somebody else, and you're also being held accountable, which is really, really important. So having a support system and ultimately like having a conversation with yourself at the end of the day and like really making sure that you're grounded is probably the most important.
Just one quote that always resonates with me is like, don't want to stick doctor treating sick patients. Take care of yourself first before you're going to have to take care of others.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And also to think that being a doctor or being a premed is not something that defines you. And being a doctor is just one of the many ways that you can channel all the talents that you have, all the intelligence you have, all the compassion for people. And you can do that as a doctor, and that's great, but you never know, you'll have an accident tomorrow and you won't be able to speak anymore, or walking or many things that can prevent you from being a doctor. So I always kind of took a step back and said, you know, I just want to be myself, be a better person, and be able to nourish the things that help me. And like Yassine was saying, that way you won't be a doctor that's a sick doctor, you'll be a healthy doctor, you'll be a doctor that feels grounded. And if you're not a doctor for whatever reason, you'll also maintain that. And I think that's very important. Just know, you know, if nursing doesn't work out for any reason, you'll still be you, and you'll still have doctors' journey for your team. And then, yeah, having those like accountability buddies and people that are non-judgmental, don't surround yourself with people that are super hyped up. Sometimes you want to be a good Samaritan and help them not get hyped up, but many times you'll get pulled into that train, so don't even try. Just like, well, you know, try, but not gonna try too hard to just kind of separate yourself from the, from all that kind of stress and anxiety, and just have very non-judgmental friends. And yeah, have a study ready for the MCAT. I think that's a really good strategy. For example, me and my friend like went through the free like Khan Academy videos every once in a while and just like click through the quizzes. It's like a low effort thing, but like we're doing something, and it's nice to do. So yeah, make sure to surround yourself with good people, and if people around you aren't good, just step away from them.
I mean, honestly, I have a friend who's not premed. Like, I have a really close friend that's not premed to, like, to remind you there's more to the world than medicine. It's a big part of your world, but it's not the whole. Yeah.
All right. Oh. All right, so what would you guys have done differently if you guys had a redo?
I mean, I kind of answered this earlier, but yeah, I guess hindsight bias aside, you kind of just see like things that you overemphasize and stuff you underemphasize. I don't know if you guys have taken the MCAT yet, or is it your first time or second time or third time, but every time you take it, I mean, I'm someone who took it twice, but every time you take it, you realize the mistakes that you made and like stuff like, okay, I focused way too much on content and not enough on practice problems, or vice versa, or stuff like that. That's kind of the same thing with UTD is like, I realized for me, it was like, maybe I should have spent more time managing my time better. Because for me, I mean, Yassine knows this. I was that guy that was in the library till like 4 or 5 a.m. because I wasted the day, like during the day. So I would like start studying like, all right, 7 p.m. let's get to it, and then I would go out throughout the whole night studying, and I'm like, all right, I'm done for the day. And honestly, I was sleeping probably like 3-4 hours a day. I was, like I said, I am not a good model. I am not a good example for that. But that was just someone that just gave up sleep. You guys know that triangle where it's like sleep, social life, grades. It's like you gotta pick two.
Yeah.
I ignored the sleep one. I went straight the other two. I was like, let me have a social life grades. But that's the biggest thing.
I think I was a little on the other side of the spectrum with that. Stuff with social life is like 10,000% of what typical person's social life. But for me, I think I spent a little bit. I mean, I know I spent too much time studying. I didn't like looking back at it now. I could have gotten the same amount of work done in like a fraction amount of time. We have 10 lectures in 2 days. We have 10 lectures in a semester here at UT. So if you're more effective with your time, then you can be working on that balance. Then you can actually, enjoy your pre-med experience a little bit more. And then I also would avoid less. In retrospect, I always think that I could avoid less. Now I have an exam like that I'll probably fail. I mean, I'm not gonna fail, but I can be 2 days away from the exam, and like we only know 20% of the material. But within those 2 days, I can cram it. In the past, I would never leave 2 days before an exam without being at like a B or something in the class.
That's also not advice. Don't just like leave it like that.
Yeah, but if you're on the side of the spectrum that I'm on right now, then just try to find that balance. Take a little bit more time. You'll be more effective with your study time as well.
If you're on the other side, study some more. like sit down earlier and give yourself some time to like just if you work smart, not hard. You're gonna have to work hard nonetheless. I tried to work smart but not hard, but I realized you got to work hard nonetheless, even if you work smart.
That's a very, very specific piece of advice for UTD. Again, I think planning ahead of time, something I'm not good at, just kind of like take the data that goes, which is good for mental health, but like not good otherwise. So like one thing I was, it's good to know that if you're looking for something to do in the summer, you have to start thinking about that in December, pretty much. Like for example, if you want to get into like a research lab or something, even if it's just like a little research lab here in BSB, like you still want to reach out to the professor probably around December or early January, because sometimes they start giving away spots as people graduate. So kind of around the time people graduate is when you should be asking. And that's like a nice piece of advice. And now we're on spring semester, like emailing people and wondering, what you did wrong. So thank you. Summer starts in December-ish, January.
Yeah, definitely something that's helped me out was planning everything.
Honestly, yeah. One thing is, do you guys? I'm sure everyone here does this. Is that you guys open up all your syllabus at the beginning of the semester and like mark every important quiz, exam, due date, stuff like that in your calendar? I remember I saw this one student do it my first day at UTD, and I thought, can't be me. That was too extra. I was like, that's too much. And then like by the second semester, third semester, I was like, damn, it's even though it sounds insignificant and small, it makes things so much better because you can just open up your calendar beginning of the week, like, all right, I know what I gotta get done this week.
Definitely.
It's kind of like a comment to actually what you just said, like for the first day for me, for sophomore year, like I basically like just like opened like all my professors' syllabus, and then like I have like 2 planners now, but I used to like only have 1, and then like I basically just like wrote like what's on the syllabus, like everything, and then just like wrote like all the dates and stuff like on my planner. So.
Future doctor, everyone. That's honestly that's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, like I don't know. Like I'm thinking on the deviation side of with med, so I'm kind of like pretty dent-ish.
Oh.
If that makes sense. So yeah, I'm just like trying to see like what kind of correlations I can find between like pre-med and pre-dent. So yeah.
You can be an oral maxillofacial surgeon. You'll go to dental school for 4 years and med school for like 2 or 4 years.
Residency and then like.
It's a good deal. I like it.
You ever watch Med School Insiders?
Yes.
Yeah, they do a really great job laying out the 2 different career paths. Like I don't know if you've ever watched their video on like dental versus physician. And there are, and like Yassine said, there are programs where you can practice both fields.
You can also use Apple Calendar because that reminds you like 1 or 2 days before you have something, because I tend to forget. Like even if I know I have an exam tomorrow and like I study for it all day long, I just tend to forget that I have an exam. So it'll remind you literally like an hour before something. You can do that. But going back to the question that was asked, one thing that I would have done differently is studying to learn, not studying to get a good grade in my test. Because almost all the classes you're going to take as an undergrad student, biology, biochem, gen chem, whatever, all of those are on the MCAT. And if you have a good solid basis of those subjects, you're not going to have to go through how many ever months of solid content review, because you're pretty much like, you already know your material. But if you're just studying like the week before the exam to get a good grade in the exam, I mean, after the exam is done, you're just going to completely forget. Or like I forgot that stuff that I just studied to get a good grade. But the classes that I actually enjoyed and I studied for really well, that was like my best. It was a breeze on the MCAT because I already knew what it was. Kind of.
And we come back in bed too.
Oh yeah.
And what she said was the best piece of advice that I've gotten from enrolled doctors. When I was a freshman, I really hope.
Yeah, I don't think that I have any regrets or anything on my 4 years of life. I do think there's like. I'm sorry, that sounded bad. Like, what I meant was that like, I mean, I'm not like dissatisfied with what I did today. I do think there's like some tweaks I could have made. For example, I was the type of person, and you see it's very similar in that we can, like, if we have, 6 hours of like intense studying to do, we'd rather just do 12 hours of like 50% studying and just like doing it with your friends so that we don't feel as bad about it. And like there's a time and place for that. Like I think that a lot of times I was never like super stressed in undergrad, which that was a huge reason. But the flip side of that is you're spending 12 hours in the library, and that itself can be like detrimental to your mental health. It's like a week will go by and you don't feel like you're stressed, but then like at the end of like that semester, you're like, wow, I don't think I did anything in particular. So I look back and like there's a lot of weekends where like I had an excuse, oh, like, I just need to study all day, that's why I can't do this and can't go there. And like I don't regret it because I was spending time with my friends, but I easily could have gone on a trip. I easily could have done like an actual activity. And if that's something that like you're interested in, if you're the type of person where if you don't have those like specific things to look forward to, like a concert or something like that, then you'll really feel like you're missing out. So it's really important to like, find like those really efficient time management skills. And so I think if I had incorporated more like active learning strategies instead of just like sitting there with my book open and just like hoping that if I look at a slide enough times, look at a page enough times, that the information will diffuse into my head. That would save me a lot of time and allow me to do a lot more things that I really wanted to do.
All right, so we're gonna stop the questions on the slides, but if you guys want to ask any questions, you guys can start right there.
So I kind of had two questions, but if I can only answer at a time, that's fine. My first was like, when it comes to taking the MCAT, I know a lot of it beforehand is like foremost, usually content review and then like practicing, but probably like in this kind of like a month or 2 weeks before the actual MCAT, like what was your game plan?
So the question was, what was your game plan pretty much the last 2 weeks to a month before the MCAT started? I didn't even spend the first month doing content review. Personally, I don't believe that's necessary. And I think that can really hurt you depending on when you're taking them, but an asterisk on that. If you're planning on taking the MCAT like the summer after your sophomore year, or like just cramming it all in one summer, I really advise against taking a month just for content review because you're leaving just about a month and a half for questions and practice problems. And that's like by the time you start practice problems, you've already started to lose a lot of the content in the beginning. I recommend learning content as you're doing questions, so kind of doing the 50-50 at the start, and seeing if you can get through those, and then at the tail end, it should be just practice problems. And the only content review you should really be doing 2 weeks out from your exam is just reviewing the content from the question that you just did. So I would do a practice exam, and the next day would just be reviewing all the questions I got wrong, and reviewing even the questions I got right, but I wasn't sure about. And a lot of times, if I had like extra time, reviewing the questions that you got right, you were sure about, but like there was a specific fact in one of the answer choices that you didn't know. Trying to like really make sure that your basics are like so well like honed that by the end of your time studying, any sort of iteration of the question, you would have it. You have an answer ready. So you didn't just get this question right in the fluke, or you knew that one fact. But if they had said which of these is not true, would you be able to reason why, or which of these is true, or all the following are true, except would you be able to reason why all the other ones aren't true? So it's like kind of doing that content review as you're doing questions at the very end is probably the most important.
I will say also taking practice tests, the AAMC has four practice tests.
4 practice and then 1 sample.
One sample, so those exams are really good, because you get to actually go through the whole, or how I would take my practice test is I would treat it like a practice test. I would start exactly when my test started. I took my test at 7:30 a.m. So I would literally get ready, act like everything, I'm taking actual MCAT, and it kind of simulate that, because that's the way that when you go into the MCAT, you don't want anything to be new to you. Like you want to be able to sit and take the test for 7 hours and 45 minutes. You don't want that to be the first time you ever take the test for that long, or sit in your seat for that long. So practicing this practice test, I think was the best way for me to do right a month prior to my MCAT. But also it's really important to take your first practice test before you start studying, because if you've never taken a practice test and you just start studying, you don't really know what you're studying for. I mean, you're studying for MCAT, but like how in-depth is that MCAT? And taking your MCAT the first time, your first practice test, really gets you to focus on what I should study and what I don't really need to focus on.
It was about the last month, right? 2 weeks about. I mean, I have to disagree with someone about what he said about doing the first month of content. At least how I studied for it the second time around, and like what I feel is the most efficient way for me. Everyone's different. But typically you have 3 phases of studying for a test. Phase 1, learning the content, whether that be through books, curriculum, Anki cards, whatever way you want to do it, right? That's the phase 1. Phase 2 is practice problems. That's where you do UWorld. Sometimes people do third-party practice exams. That last month, phase 3, that's phase 3, where you're doing strictly AAMC content material. You're doing the practice exams and you're reviewing your exams. And by honestly reviewing the exams, you're reviewing a lot of content in itself. Is everyone here familiar with, have they ever heard of Miles Down Anki deck? It's about like 2,900 Anki cards for, it was made from the Kaplan quick sheet. Honestly, summarizes the content for MCAT perfectly. 2,900 cards. I would every day knock out 400, 300 cards, something like that. It sounds like a lot, but I swear to you, it's not. You can knock out 430 minutes to 45 minutes in the morning.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, what the hell?
What do you mean? No, they're review cards. They're review.
400.
What's up?
You link that, like, Amazon or something?
On Amazon?
It's free.
No, it's free. It's
Anki's are free.
you guys-
On Reddit.
I mean, yeah, do y'all know Anki is? All right, everyone knows Anki is?
I don't know about 30 minutes, but usually like 2 hours.
Wait, you need 2 hours for 400?
Probably. I'm
Bro,
not like you, bro.
No, the average time's like 8 seconds. What do you mean, a card?
Not me, man.
Once you get it wrong, though.
Bro, but
Once you get it wrong, you have to get it.
well, yeah, if you get it wrong, you gotta redo
But
it.
then you gotta think about it.
We got some more questions.
Yeah, it's called Miles Down.
So,
There's also private.
That's the name of the guy who made it. Huh? What?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I think he took a gap year or something and went the time to make the cards or something, like some ultimate content MCAT sheet.
His application over 10
Bro, it's really, I mean, it's a really good deck.
before we answer any of your questions, I think it's important that you guys know what each of our experiences was, like when it came to taking MCAT. Like, so I took it after my second year, summer after my second year. So a lot of things like someone said were already on top of my head. I did it in, I mean, I had dedicated for 2.5 months. And other than that, like I had started prepping my car. I had started like my car's prep with Dr. Rainey's verbal reasoning for pre-health class. I think it's a 1 credit hour below that you guys could take. Semester prior. And then I also was already a tutor for chemistry, so that, and I had just taken Biochem 1, Biochem 2, so I had already went back in my mind. But when it came down to the last month before the MCAT, I got nervous. I thought about pushing it because I was going to take it 2 weeks before school started, and I wasn't seeing the scores that I wanted yet. But that's when I started pulling like 12-hour, 14-hour days. And I still made sure I got 8 hours of sleep. Like if I got home late, I just made sure that I slept in that day. I didn't take any days off of that last month. I just slept in one week. And I drank like vanilla lattes. I'm not a coffee person, but vanilla lattes on the daily for that. But I couldn't have done more than that. Like if I had gone another week, I probably would have burnt out and wouldn't have been able to do as well on that.
And then I took my MCAT in March of junior year, so I was definitely trying to put it as far away as possible. I thought if I figured December, it didn't work out, but I was glad that, I had that time, so that we, don't underestimate how much time it takes to prepare for the exam. And I was gonna just keep on working as a scribe, and I kind of felt like, oh, the doctor there needs me, then for scribe, so I'm not gonna take days off. So I felt like a chance to keep doing what I was doing, and people around me said, no, like, the MCAT is important for you, like, just take time off. So I would definitely recommend take time off from extracurriculars, if you're doing it in the middle of the semester while you're taking classes, work ahead. to like finish some of the projects you have to, if you can work ahead, like it would be just, leave it till later, to make sure your grades don't say too much, but like basically the MCAT is very, very important to just make sure you set at least, like I would say, 2 months beforehand of just no other stuff other than studying for the MCAT, and if you have class, just do the bare minimum in classes.
Alright.
Well, I would say try to take classes a semester, or you're planning to take the MCAT during a semester. Make sure to take classes that you were saying that are related to the MCAT. For example, if you're a biochem major like me, don't take physical chemistry. That would have been bad. It didn't make sense. So try to do stuff like biochem or biology, things like that.
Alright, you had a question?
Yeah, I know that you said she studied for 8 hours a day, for 8 months, something like that. You said like 400 cards in 45 minutes. So if you were to recommend like, an average, like an ideal amount of time that you would put towards MCAT study, what would it be?
Ideal amount of time. Oh, so I think typically, like, at least how the people who design the test is, like, in a perfect world, you could study 8 hours in a day and be done, right? But that's typically not the case. I know some people, some days you're gonna feel like you can study 12 hours, some days you're gonna feel like you can't study, you struggle to study for 5. You kind of build that stamina as you progress through it. I'd say typically you want to commit like 40 minutes to cars. You're gonna do like 4 cars passages a day. So it's like there's an hour, right? And then you got like another hour of, let's say, review, and then I'd say at like probably about 8. Maybe 10.
Yeah, 8 hours, if you can, ideally, you'll do like 8 hours about. And one thing that really helped me, and I think also other people, is like bunching it up. So, I think the first section on MCAT is the chem phys section. So try to mix in your chem and phys into one. Usually for MCAT, you do question questions. So try to mix a couple chem physes instead of like 50 questions, I think is on each section. Do those for like 15 minutes, review them for another 15 minutes. That way you're simulating like test day scenarios in terms of being up at 8 a.m., spending 15 minutes doing questions and answering them. And then one thing that really helped me it's hard to like adjust to is that right after you're done doing chem phys, you get thrown into a cars section, and cars are like completely unrelated to chem phys in terms of test taking strategies and such. So practice switching from science to humanities, and then the same thing for biochem to psych.
Rhea?
I will say it did take me so long to study for my MCAT because, so I did do 8 months. I was in my last semester of UTD, and I was taking a lot of classes. That semester was 20 credit hours a semester, which is my last semester. So cramming that into those months while I was studying for MCAT was pretty rough. But I think for sure, if you do plan on studying for your MCAT while you're in school, at least have a solid 1 month or 2 months where you don't have anything else, you don't have school, you don't have work, where you can focus on those 2 months of studying strictly for the MCAT. And then like at first, it was a 4-hour day for me. And then getting close to the MCAT would ramp up to, like, I was able to sit and study for literally 12 hours consecutively. And I have a TikTok, my TikToks are recorded of, I have time-lapse TikToks of me studying 12 hours. But you do build stamina while studying the MCAT. And then, at the end, it doesn't feel like you're studying and doing like nothing but studying. And the MCAT is so densely packed, there's so much to do. And you feel like within those 12 hours, or I felt like within those 12 hours, it was like, what did I even study? What did I even do within those 12 hours? Because there's so much to do.
Yeah, I just want to say really quickly, I think less focus on how much time you're spending and more focus on the actual task. I'm not the type A type of person to like plan out 2.5 months of work and here's all we're doing every day. I can't do that. But one thing that you see and I did really well was like every week we would have one task that we have to get through. So we have to get through this exam. We have to do this many questions, this many passages, and it's all about like breaking it up. Okay, so we have to do this many, here's what we should average every day. So that way, like whether I'm spending 8 hours or whether I'm spending 4 hours is irrelevant. It's more about like, am I finishing passages? So if I wanted to do 5 passages in section and would do all of them that day, I could leave theoretically early. So it's motivating me to stay efficient. And I could reward myself, hey, I finished up quickly today, let me go to the gym. Or like, hey, I'm really slow today, like, maybe it's gonna take a little longer, and so you have to be flexible with yourself, but make sure that it's more task oriented and not just 8 hours, because if you ever work a job, 8 hours means you're just trying to kill time, and your book's gonna be open in front of you, you're not actually letting it.
Something I want to add to all that before we get to the next question, I think there's no magic number. And 8 hours or 12 hours, you might set a goal to do that many hours, but really, like maybe 5 of those hours you're just scrolling through Instagram, So make sure you're not just trying to meet like a quota, and just actually make however many hours you're studying, make it actually productive.
I think the tasks is the best way to manage that. I have to hold myself accountable, so I did daily tasks, like 4 to 5 things. It was like cars, chapters, these chapters, this Anki review, and these practice problems. And damn, like if I got it done early, I got it done early.
I was gonna ask like what you do the night before, like the morning of your MCAT, to make sure that you feel like okay enough to take it, that you're not like an anxious mess or whatever.
So all of that will depend. So her question was like, what would you do the night before or the morning of your MCAT? That again also depends on you as a person. Like a lot of this stuff, you're gonna need to get advice from a lot of us and then see what works with you. I personally, the day before the MCAT, so I called it quits at like 1 p.m. It's like a half day for me. Had a burger. Hopefully there wasn't any cola in it. There wasn't, so it was good. And then it was hard to sleep. But one thing I highly recommend is to put your phone away before 9 p.m. Put it away, lock it up, whatever. Especially if you tell a lot of your friends, you're gonna get a lot of texts from them saying, like, hey, come MCAT. So put it away.
That's more stressful.
I think your friends and your family will make you feel like you're gonna be getting shipped off. They're like, we're gonna miss you. Oh my God, we'll remember you forever. They're like, bro, I'll be back in 8 hours.
And then, so I did that. That helped me. I didn't sleep till when I was 1, but I didn't. I didn't get much sleep. I woke up. I didn't drink any coffee or anything, because you need to make sure that you're not drinking. If you do drink coffee, you better use those like the breaks that you get. I didn't drink any coffee, and I still need to go to the restroom like midway through one of my exams, one of the sections. But what I did do is I was using these Kaplan quick sheets. They're really good. They're available for free on Reddit. You can probably find the link. And I looked through those on my way to the exam. When I got to the exam, I remember driving.
Yeah.
I my parents taking me to the exam. A friend of mine, another friend of mine from UT, I saw him there. He was like, "Oh, I had just taken a practice exam the day before, the full length, and he had reviewed it that same day." I never do that. I like someone said earlier, when I tell you I do 12-hour, 14-hour study days, it's like probably what something I'll do in 6 hours. It's just not, that's how it helps me with myself. But yeah, so just make sure you go to bed early, even if you don't sleep, even if you don't get much sleep. Make sure you get a good amount of sleep the day before, though. Sleep in the day before. Practice waking up at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., like at least a week out from that. Make sure that there's a lot of things that happen. I have a friend that threw up the night before the exam. He still turned out fine. He's working on good, etc. But there's a lot of things. So just know yourself and embrace it. And if you do end up throwing up, you can still do it.
Better the night before than during.
Yeah. Quick question for y'all. Are they still doing the 3 p.m. exams? Like the 1
No,
p.m.
no.
They are? They are? Okay, yeah. So I was gonna say, that's probably the only reason I did well on my MCAT, or it was because it was at 3 p.m. I am not a morning person. I don't even try to wake up early, If it was at 7 a.m., I probably switch careers, but the best piece of advice I got that I didn't really follow all the way through is stick to a routine. So honestly, by the time you take the actual MCAT, like come exam day, honestly, it'll feel like a more stressed out practice exam, because you'll have been so prepared and so practiced And like you've gone through the routine so many times, I promise you, it'll feel like another practice exam, except it counts. That's the only difference. And you won't know what your score is. And so I know people that they're so like detail oriented with how they do it, they eat the same snacks for all their practice exams. Yeah, right.
I don't like PB&Js, but I did that.
I was lazy. I ate what was yeah.
Hey, but one thing that is true, there was a girl here a few years ago, and she was like 95 plus percentile on her MCAT. Okay, 98 plus percentile on her MCAT. And when she used to take her practice exams, she would set the temperature to the same room temperature as the exam. There's another guy that also scored like 99 plus percentile, we didn't do that, but it is something to note. Also note, maybe.
Wait, the temperature that the MCAT room would be in?
Yeah.
They literally called the center and they were like, yeah, well, how cold is it? And they set their rooms.
I'm telling you, people like med students are like pre-med are neurotic like that. Like
Don't do that.
I had one of my friends. He told me, he's like, go scout out the testing center the night before. So literally, and he made me go drive out there and go like see where the testing room is. Like, you gotta know where the parking is, how to quickly get. Bro, that's dramatic.
That's also one of those things that if I did that, I would take that to my grave. That's embarrassing.
I know it's telling you, but yeah, like that's the thing is you kind of, like I said, you want to establish a routine with what you eat, what you're doing, honestly, what you wear. Like I can't even bag in sweats. Everyone will look homeless like when they go take a nap. Yeah, you show. Yeah, you guys show. You see what's show up in a suit. Manifest destiny.
All right, I'm gonna officially end it here, but if you guys still have questions, obviously you guys can stay longer and come up to the front, and I'm gonna put the link again if you guys still need to sign in. But thank you guys for coming. If you guys still have more questions, please come forward. Yeah, and make sure to get some popcorn for the fundraising committee. Yeah.
I have to pay my
You want to pay this? Talk to Ali. He's the guy that just walked behind. Yeah. Hey, Ali. Yeah. He wants to pay.
You got cash or you want Venmo? $15 for the dues and $10 for so $25. Yeah.
Honestly, I think you have to balance it out with like like kind of coursework you're doing. You don't want to take too many hard classes at once. If you know you're going to be working on things, you're going to set yourself up for failure. You're going to overload yourself with practice.
Yeah, everything will be available.
Prioritize the grade. First and foremost.
Yeah.
If you like your
So every point basically
spending time, also, having a I wasn't almost
pre-med like advisors and stuff. Also, you're active socialize, try to get.
Oh, really? Text you caffeine from the caffeine. I drink a lot of caffeine too. Even like I mean, like 1 cup, 2 cups, and a monster, I'll go
Basically, yeah, it's something fast.
Oh, bro, I'm real, man. Honestly, give yourself a few days to like cleanse yourself to the caffeine, bro. Because I did certain things myself. I used to do myself. I had to like give myself a few days to like.
I mean, yeah, that's actually one thing
I know you like you don't need it. I tell myself something at the time. I'll give myself a couple of days like when I'm not on it, and I know I need to go party. I'll do that. But yeah, I mean, like I don't know. Are you working right now? Okay. So yeah, okay, so you can work.
It's not as big as people
are doing.
Yeah. I think the pre-med course is not hard.
Also, outside of the medical field, I think it's a good idea. Also, like you're gonna very that was a good way to get involved and kind of action.
Hi, yes, so, I can't believe, but I guess I'm gonna log into my Gmail. 39 days credit.
Yeah, I'm trying to put it in the group chat. Are you in the group chat?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to put it in the group chat. So give me 1 second.
You'll be able to figure out if like, bro, I do it here.
Holy, don't say so.
You don't really need it. I can throw it away for a while. Yeah.
You're doing like what, 2 years? We went 2 years. In 2 years? Okay, well, you got 2 years to get what you said. Yeah, I mean, you need to give your mind, remember, you need to give yourself a need to say too, so you can take that MCAT.
I'm planning to do, the next time I'm taking it, after I've done the OM one. And on the MCAT, I'm going to do it 3.
For, beginning of May 5th, when it is open up the class, you want to have your like honestly, like you need to have that stuff already unlocked. Honestly, I generally believe this. Hopefully, but you want to give yourself just maybe reschedule or retake, because you never know. I know no one wants to hear this, but there is a bit of a luck factor on the MCAT. So at the end of the day, you get an easy test, you get a hard test, you get material that you studied really well, it's a very bell curve. It's written on the bell curve, because someone will tell you, oh, my MCAT was very easy. That's not a good because if you know that you've done maybe a lot of other people have stuff that it's a hard curve. If you find it really hard, people tell you that's good. That means it's going to be a good curve. Bro, I mean, it's so
Maybe that's.
I'm sorry, you guys had. Yeah. Oh, shadowing? Bro, so easy. So, I know for COVID, they were doing virtual shadowing. There was a period where they were doing virtual shadowing. I think that might still be going on for some people. If I were you, I'd probably do that. That's easy. That's 3 hours, easy hours you can do. You can literally be virtually shadowed. I recommend you actually pay attention. But you do that while